Circa 13,000, Slave, a person who is the chattel or property of another, from the Old French word slave, and directly from medieval Latin slavus, slave, originally Slav, so used in the secondary sense because of the many Slavs sold in slavery by conquering peoples. I feel like this is different from my two original videos, but I feel like we don't talk about the history of Slav people enough. So I'm going to, because I am one and I'm tired of this rhetoric that all white people are colonizers, not even mentioning that some people still think Czechoslovakia is still a thing. Well, it hasn't been for like 40 years. Disclaimer: yes, at the end of the day, we are white, and that's not going to change. We are privileged because we are white, and that's not going to change. But oftentimes, we do face xenophobia in other countries, and unfortunately, that's not seeming to change either. The oldest written history of the Slavs can be shortly summarized. Myriads of slave hunts, and the enthrallment of entire peoples. The Slav was the most prized of human goods, with increased strength outside its marshy land of origin, hardened to the utmost against all privation, industrious, connected with little, good-humored, and cheerful. He filled the slave markets of Europe, Asia, and Africa. It must be remembered that for every Slavonic slave who reached his destination, at least 10 succumbed to inhuman treatment during transport and to the heat of the climate. Indeed, Ibrahim, 10th century, himself in all probability a slave dealer, says, and the Slavs cannot travel to Lombardy on account of the heat which is fatal to them, hence their high price. This was stated in the Cambridge Medieval History, Volume 2 in 1913. In many instances in history, Slavs were not considered white, and some even wanted to forcibly resettle us beyond the Urals or exterminate us. The origins of Slavic people goes all the way back to ancient Rome, where sources refer to the early Slavic people as Veneti, who dwelt in the region of Central Europe, east of the Germanic tribe of Suebi, and west of the Iranian Sarmatians. In the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, Jordanes, in his work Getica, written in about 551 AD, describes the Veneti as a populous nation whose dwelling begins at the sources of Vistula and occupy a great expanse of the land. He also describes the Veneti as an ancestors of Antes and Slaveni, two early Slavic tribes who appeared on the Byzantine frontier in the earliest 6th century. Procopius, who wrote in 545 that the Slaveni and the Antea actually had a single name in the remote past, for they were both called Sporoi in old times. The name Sporoi derives from the Greek to sow. He described them as barbarians who lived under democracy and believed in one God, the maker of light, to whom they made sacrifice. They lived in scattered housing and constantly changed settlement. In war, they were mainly foot soldiers with shields, spears, bows, and little armor, which was reserved mainly for chiefs and their inner circle of warriors. Their language is barbaric, that is, not Greek, and the two tribes are alike in appearances, being tall and robust, while their bodies and hair are neither very fair or blonde, nor indeed do they incline entirely to the dark type, but they are slightly ruddy in color, and they live a hard life, giving no heed to bodily comforts. Around the 7th and 9th century, the Slavs emerged from obscurity when the westward movement of Germanic tribes in the 5th and 6th centuries started the great migration of the Slavs, who settled the lands abandoned by Germanic tribes who had fled from the Huns and their allies. Slavs, according to this account, moved westward into the country between Oder and the Elbe-Saale line, southward into Bohemia, Moravia, much of the present-day Austria, the Pannonian Plain and the Balkans, and the northward along the upper Dnieper River. It also been suggested that some Slavs migrated with the Vandals to the Iberian Peninsula and even to North Africa. The South Slavs, who likely settled in the Balkans during the 6th and 7th centuries, bordering with the Byzantine Empire to the south, came under the sphere of the influence of the Eastern Christianity relatively early, beginning with the creation of writing system for Slavic languages. In 855 by the brothers Saint Cyril and Methodius, and the adoption of Christianity in Bulgaria in 864 and 863 in Great Moravia. The East Slavs followed with the official adoption in 988 by Vladimir the Great of Kievan Rus. The Christianization of the Slavic people was, however, slow, in many cases even superficial phenomenon. It was vigorous in western and central parts of what is today Ukraine, since they were closer to Kiev, the capital of Kievan Rus. Even then, however, popular resistance led by Volkovs, the pagan priests or shamans, recurred periodically for centuries. Popular resistance to Christianity was also widespread in early Poland, culminating in the pagan reaction. The West Slavs of the Baltic tenaciously withstood Christianity until it was violently imposed on them through the Northern Crusaders. Among Poles and East Slavs, rebellions broke out throughout the 11th century. Christian chronicles reported that the Slavs regularly embraced their original religion. Many of the Slavic and pagan rituals have been lost to time, and it's very hard to find information about the original gods and folklore. In early 1941, Germany began planning the General Plan OST, the genocide of Slavs in Eastern Europe, which was supposed to start after a major expansion of Germanic concentration camps in occupied Poland and the fall of Stalin's regime. This plan was to be carried out gradually over 25 to 30 years. After an approximate 30 million Slavs would be killed throughout starvation and their major cities depopulated. The Germans were supposed to repopulate Eastern Europe. In June 1941, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa, the Mustache Man paused the plan to focus on the extermination of the Jews. However, some of the plan was nonetheless implemented. Millions of Slavs were murdered in Eastern Europe. This included victims of the Hunger Plan, Germany's intentional starvation of the region, as well as the murder of 3.3 million Soviet prisoners of the war. Germany's Heinrich Himmler also ordered his subordinate Ludolf Hermann von Alvensleben to start repopulating Crimea, and hundreds of ethnic Germans were forcibly removed and moved to cities and villages there. I also want to specifically mention Poland because it could be its own video, truly. In parts of history, Poland was erased from maps. The prejudice of Polish people led to mass killings and genocide, or it was used to justify atrocities both before and during World War II. While Soviet repressions and massacres of Polish citizens were ideologically motivated. The negative attitude of Soviet authorities to the Polish nation is well attested. Propagandists stereotype Poles as nationalists in order to portray Germans as victims and justify the invasion of Poland. The Giewicz incident was a false flag to show that Germany was under Polish attack, and the killing of Germans by Poles in Bromberger, Blutsonntag, and elsewhere was inflated to 58,000 to increase German hatred for Poles and justify the killing of Polish civilians. In October 1939, Directive number 1306 of Germany's propaganda ministry stated it must be made clear, even to the German milkmaid, that the Polishness equals subhumanity. Poles, Jews, and Romani people are on the same inferior level. This should be brought home as leitmotif, and from time to time in the form of existing concepts such as Polish economy, Polish ruin, and so on, until everyone in Germany sees every Pole, whether farmer worker or intellectual, as vermin. I remember during Dream Academy, Adela, one of the contestants who is Slovak, talked about the lack of representation of Slavs and got so much hate for it because she's white. It is so much more nuanced than that. Oftentimes, what people perceive as representation of Slavic people is completely wrong. The Madonna and whore complex does come to mind while talking about the representation of Slavic women in media, because I'd like to say we have two main stereotypes about Slavic women. One is the ideal wife and mother stereotype, often portrayed as dedicated wives and nurturing mothers, the obedient housewife who will do anything you say, and the second is the exotic beauty. For example, the resurfacing of the Slavic doll. This quote-unquote aesthetic centers on a specific physical ideal, a tall, extremely slender physique with delicate facial features, such as high cheekbones and almond-shaped eyes, often complemented by pale skin and long, straight, light-colored hair. The portrayal of Slavs in movies is more often than not a caricature. More often than not, Slavic people are depicted as Russians with heavy accents and stereotypically evil or from the mafia or whatnot, while there are hundreds of Slavic cultures and countries to take inspiration from. Post-war countries and poverty and the depression they suffered after the wars being used as an aesthetic for TikTok, praising authors like Dostoevsky and Kafka because they're this deep, depressed Slavic men, while most artists were starving because they weren't seen as profitable. Oftentimes, artists also had to hide and write under a pen name because of censorship. Take Mikhail Bulgakov's Master and the Margarita, for example. He started writing The Master and Margarita in 1928, but burned the first manuscript in 1930, facing the harsh reality that he could not see a future as a writer in the Soviet Union at a time of widespread political repression. A censored version, with about 12% of the text removed and more changed, was first published in Moskva magazine around 1966. A manuscript was smuggled out of the Soviet Union to Paris, where the YMCA Press published the first book edition in 1967. The text, as published in the magazine Moskva, was swiftly translated into Estonian and printed in 1967 by the company St. Ramat. This version included many scenes and themes that had previously been censored, for example, Bulgakov's commentary on Soviet moral and government corruption. A lot of people don't even talk about the effects of World War II and how having parents and grandparents who lived through communism and can't manage to break the cycle. I think if you're a Slav, you're probably hurt. At once in your life, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. Speaking from experience, a lot of Slav parents don't know how to regulate their emotions or are indeed emotionally neglectful. And this is unfortunately a cycle. Most of this really is just surface level. The Slavs have faced over 500 years of occupation, yet some people still refuse to acknowledge it.